Hey guys, this is Trevor Probant. This is the Land Investing Dirt Road to Wealth podcast. We are here with Terence Stokes for the second time. He is a firefighter slash land investing extraordinaire with his wonderful wife, Angela. And he's also a member of the Masterclass. He's part of class 2 of the Masterclass. And he reached out and we wanted to kind of talk about good, bad, and ugly that comes with being that. And he had some really, really cool thoughts and ideas that I don't really think about as the quote unquote educator. Um, it's more than just a class that you kind of always heard of. There's a little more to it. But before we dive into it, if you're curious about the master class, go to casualfridaysrei.com. That is Adam and Justin's website. There'll be a link on there that says masterclass. Click on that, sign up for a call with Adam, or you can, again, call or text message me, 940-736-8797, or Trevor at GoWestLands, LANDS, .com. We're just kind of letting people know about the real difference between this and a lot of other courses, programs, things like that you've maybe been a part of or heard of before. So before I talk too much, Terence, again, if people haven't heard the first one with your wonderful wife, explain to them, kind of where you're at, what you've been doing, and then we'll do a deep dive.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to come on here and speak. You had some pretty heavy hitters on here with Clint and Najee and Justin. So I'm just thankful to have the opportunity to speak on
We
the
all
podcast.
we all we all put our pants on the same way, bro. We all
Yeah,
put our
you're
pants on the same way.
a huge fan of the podcast, so I'm glad to be a part of it. So I'm Terence Stokes. I own a land investing business that's located in Winchester, Virginia. GCS Land Investments. My better half is Angela. We do it together. Probably one of the few husband and wife couples that really go out the land investing business together, and it's just been going great. So I was actually kind of pulling a dodgeball on Trevor here with the duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Dodge, dip, dive, duck, and dodge.
Podcast to explain one of the subdivides that we're working on right now, which is Terrain Drive. And I was driving to work yesterday, and I heard you on the Casual Fridays podcast, and you guys were discussing it, and you brought up my better half and the Terrain Drive. So I was like, man, I said I should probably get a hold of Trevor and finally get on this podcast and discuss it. So here I am.
Explain terrain drive and kind of the story behind that, right? Because it's a little bit different. Let's go through the whole process of this, right? How did you source it? What did you buy it for? You put it on the market for a while. It wasn't quite doing what you thought it was going to, and just being on a call with us, right? It just opens up your eyes. That whole collective genius, right? The collective mind of multiple people, and especially once you've looked at a deal 8,000 times and you kind of go blank, right? Like you just like, oh, well, this is the plan. This was the plan, but it's cool to have, again, the whole masterclass around you giving you different ideas. So go through the whole story. I'll pick and choose some different things here and there.
Yeah, so we purchased this back in. So I sent a mailer out. So we'll get to there. So I sent a mailer out. It went to the gentleman's house. He, after meeting and discussing with him, it sat on his kitchen table. He has two a son and a daughter that live in Colorado. He was thinking about gifting them the property, and they came back and said, "Look, we don't really want the property." So our mailer was sitting on his kitchen table, and that's when he gave me a call. And this was probably back in October of last year.
Okay.
So I wasn't a part of the master class because we didn't start till December. It's hard to believe that we're almost coming up on a year of the master class.
I know.
So we purchased and wrapped up the property through title and the bank in November and listed it right around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we still haven't, at that point, we didn't even have our first masterclass Zoom meeting yet.
Yep.
So put it on the market, paid $3,900 an acre for it. It was 88 acres, Berkeley County, West Virginia. Listed it at $560,000 and kind of sat it on the market. So pay
Yep.
$350 for it. It's sitting for $560.
Okay.
We get into the Masterclass. I got it sitting there. I'm hoping it's just a straight flip. It got a lot of interest right off the bat on Zillow, a lot of saves, a lot of views. I think it had like 800 and some views, 50 some saves. So wasn't really looking at subdividing it. I was like, it'd be a good, nice flip. I can take
Hell
that.
yeah, dude. A lot of people work their ass off for 6 figures, much less a
Absolutely. So
little flip.
in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking like I would rather just flip this really quick, take that money, and be able to invest it in other subdivide projects. Plus, I was constantly cruising the market with Zillow looking for a subdivide to buy, like something that was perfect. And I had one sitting there the whole time that I already owned. But I'm sitting there on Zillow looking at all these listings, trying to find this perfect subdivide, and I had one sitting there the whole time. So we
Mm-hmm.
get into the master class. We start doing our calls, our 3 a week, and then our accountability calls on Tuesdays. And I'm watching the subdivides the guys are bringing, and I'm listening to everybody chime in and giving their thoughts. And after about 4 or 5 months, I'm like, man, I have this already. It's sitting on the market. It hasn't got any offerings. I've had a bunch of showings on it, but nobody's ready to commit to 88 acres, especially in the economic climate that we were in.
And
But my,
and and also you'd had feedback because when you brought that to us, right? Just on a normal call that we always have, you had feedback from your realtor saying, "Hey, I've got people wanting 10 acres all day long," or whatever that was, right? Like that's the whole deal. Again, we make unaffordable land affordable, right? That's our whole goal. We make unaffordable land affordable. That's our goal. You'd put it on the market. You didn't even think about this new tool that you put in your toolbox, right?
yeah,
because it was, I get it, totally get it. And so now the market has told you where you need to be, right? The market has told you where you need to be. And then you were like, hey, I've been kind of thinking about this. This is where it is. And you presented it to us on our call. And what happened?
yeah. So exactly what you're saying. The showings that were happening at that property, everybody came back and wanted something smaller. They didn't want the all 88 acres. They were like, hey, I would love to have 10 or 15 acres, but nobody wanted the 88 acres. So
Most people don't.
yeah,
To be honest with you, right? Most people don't,
yep,
especially if they're going to use it as a primary residence, right? And especially close to where you are. There's a lot of people that live in that part of the world, right? It's not like where I live, where it's out in the middle of BFE, right?
yeah, yeah. I
10
mean, right,
acres is a lot of country, especially with the topography and the trees and things like that. If y'all, 10 acres feels much different than 10 acres where I'm at.
yeah, absolutely. And honestly, the location of this property is ideal. It's literally 1 mile. There's a it's called the Woods, which is a resort and spa. So 1 mile golf course, spa, beautiful place. So it's 1 mile down the road. So anybody looking within that 1.5 hour window of DC type, that area, they're looking for a piece of property like this to put a
Yep.
cabin on a house. So I
Yep.
mean, it's perfect. But nobody wanted the 88 acres. So I brought it to the group. I said, look, hey, this is what my realtor's feeding back to me. People want 10 acre, lots. They want 15 acres, but they don't want the 88. So we put it up on the screen. We look at it, and Justin, you, Adam, a couple other guys chimed in and said, "Hey, what if we run a road right through here and we cut it, into 7 different parcels, 10+ acres each one? How does that look?" We put it up. I cut it up, sent it to my realtor. You guys looked at it. Everybody was like, "That's it. That's what's going to sell.
Yep.
That's what's going
Yep.
to help sell it." So,
Yep.
and with that being,
So,
with the
yeah, go
markets,
ahead.
yeah, with the markets looking at right now, and I just got the sketch plat back from the survey company, which I'm in the process of submitting it to the county now for
Okay.
approval. The way we have it cut up is there's one 16 acre lot, there's a 13, a 14, and then three 10 acre lots. I'm sorry, 4 10 acre lots. So
Yep.
you got 4 10s, you've got 116, 113, and 114.
Because that one kind of has a funny shape to it, and you're not going to make as much per acre, right? Like you're going to average out a weighted out average. You're still going to make more money, but there's always anyone that you do, unless it's a half acre lot, right? Like even the half acre lots, there's always going to be one or two that just don't quite fit right.
Yep.
and you're just like, hey, if I get out what I got into it, or maybe make a little money, I consider that a W, right?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yep, yep,
Absolutely. I paid 3,900 an acre for it. If you sit here and look at it on the conservative side, if we're able to sell it for 10,000 an acre, I mean that's a $360,000 profit. But if we're able to sell it for the high side at 15,000 an acre, that's $775,000.
and
Now
what, and just profit.
that's profit. That's
Okay.
profit. That's
And how, what was your cost to build the road, to do the everything? What are your capex costs?
15,000, and the road's going to be 50,000.
So
So
65.
yep, 65.
Okay. What about power?
So power is what I have to get with the power company because power runs right by the first parcel. The first
Yep.
two parcels are right there. So
Yep.
what I have to get with the power company is to see if power is brought to the first couple parcels, if they're going to charge, to run it all the way to
Mhm.
the back, or if they're just going to do it by, hey, the first lot sales will run power because they're gaining 7 new customers. So
That's a huge deal, guys. And I don't know if you hear this all the time, and it's not always true, and not always in every co-op, but a lot of these people will run power for free if they're going to get 5, 10, 15, 20 new customers, right? Because they do not make money selling poles and line. They get money by spinning electric meters, right? That's how they get paid. That's how they get paid. And so there are a lot of these co-ops, and especially larger companies, that AEPs and things like this, they will literally pay all your capex, right? Build tons of value into it. Not always. You've, again, got to talk to them, got to explain to them what you're doing. But especially if they're going to be like, these are mostly going to be private or primary residences, right? Like you're going to probably take a 10 acre and cut it, and you're going to turn it into someone's primary residence where they're going to be running power all day long, right?
yeah, and honestly,
That's what those power companies want.
that's consistent to what the land looks like already. I mean, there's
Yep.
5 10 acre lots out there already. So that's I tried to stay consistent based on what was already there when I cut
Yep.
this. So
Yep. Yep.
and then
So
if we average it out at 13,000 an acre, that's still a $600,000 profit on this one project. So
from just having different eyes, right?
yeah,
But
absolutely.
that's the truth with everything, right? Sometimes you're like, man, I know how to do this shit, and just having an idea or just having a different set of eyes on on that project can literally make you, I don't know, but I used to make 150, 160,000 bucks a year. I mean, that's 4 or 5 years, right? And of
Yeah,
work, right?
yeah, yeah.
Working really hard in the oil field, right? Like that's that's not bad. That's not
No,
too bad.
not at all. Well, and the thing is, I have some smaller subdivides that I'm working on now, but this is like my baby. Like this is the one that I'm putting a lot of effort into. Um, my realtor, we were talking the other day, and he was like, "You could make it Stokes's subdivision and Stokes Lane," and I said I could. I said, but after meeting with the gentleman, sitting down, he bought me my breakfast. He explained to me how it was his dad's property. I said, I'm probably going to name it all after him. It's going to be,
Yep.
I'm gonna, and I want to do it up nice. The
Yep.
entrance, I'm going to put a wall. It's going to be created. I'm probably going to call it the gentleman's name, Gum Estates, and then his grandfather who owned the property. Well, his dad, the kid's his grandfather who owned the property. I'll probably name the street Francis Gum Way or Lane Drive, whatever. Just kind of in tribute to him. And the fact is, it's not all about me. When we sit here and talk about doing the right thing, and you're a
Yep.
big proponent of doing the right thing, to me, that's doing the right thing. I didn't own
Yep.
the property. I just bought it. I'm going to make a lot of money off of it. So I'm going to dedicate it to the gentleman who had it in his family for years. So,
It's funny you say that because I literally called the realtor yesterday on that one outside of College Station saying, "Hey, can I use Mr. Opperman's name on
yeah,
this?" Right, and he's still alive, barely. He's
yeah,
barely alive. But I was like, they'd had this thing forever.
yeah, yeah,
Is it okay if is it okay if I use hit their name?
yeah.
She's calling again. We'll hear something probably today or tomorrow or one way or other. But it's funny that you mentioned that because that's the exact same thing that I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about doing the right thing, and to me, that's doing the right thing. So
Yep.
I'm gonna call Mr. Gum up and just talk to him, explain to him, hey, this is what we're doing with the property. This is what I would like to do. Get his permission, and I'm sure he'll be ecstatic
Yep.
that we want to do that. So, but yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
So
anyway,
this
but
will be the second
yep.
subdivide that I actually get finished. The first one I have is just a smaller 12 acres that we're cutting up into 3 lots,
Yep.
and that'll probably be my first one that's completed. It got caught up with some titling issues, so if anybody thinks it's not hard, but it's not easy to get
No.
into a subdivide. And there's a lot of steps.
There's a lot of moving effing parts, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. It's not hard, but it's definitely not easy. So
Yep. What was your, we talked about this and you talked about it being more than a business side, right? And I really want to hear about that and talk about, what we just talked about with Tim and Daniel and those guys, right? Like let's talk about what makes, the masterclass a little bit different or a lot different. Again, I buy courses all the time, but I've never done a whole lot of master
yeah,
classes kind of stuff, right? So let's go back, kind of explain, what, again, and I don't, Terence doesn't make any money off of this podcast, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
I'm not paying anybody anything, but
I love being on here and talking with you, man, for sure. Like I said, you have a fan in your podcast, and that's me for sure. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I would love to sit here and talk. I wrote a couple things down that we discussed a little bit ago, and the one thing that I want to put out there is the fairness of the selection process, because I didn't know you, I didn't know Adam, I did, and I met Justin at LearnLand at the conference that we went to there. Talked to him for like 10 minutes, watched him present, and maybe talked to him for 5 minutes after that. That was it. So when the opportunity came up for us to apply for the master class, my wife and I we're looking at each other like, what are the chances that we're going to get selected? I mean, we don't know anybody, so we'll give our best effort. We'll apply and we'll see what happens. So during the process, like I thought everything, the fairness was great. I mean, the interview went good. We were kind of curious, like, hey, are we going to get selected or not? We waited and waited, and we're waiting for the email or the phone call, and you know, and when we were called and we were like, hey, yeah, you guys were selected, I mean, it was great. So if anybody's on the fence about applying, don't be. Just apply because these guys, it doesn't matter. There's no good old boy system. There's no click. They're going to give everybody a fair opportunity to present why they feel that they should be in the master class, and then they're going to select accordingly. So if you're on the fence of, well, I probably shouldn't apply because I don't know anybody or I'm just getting started in land investing, don't apply and really sell yourself to them on why you need to be in the class.
yep. No, I couldn't agree with you more. Like that's the whole impetus of this. Like it's we've taken 10 people, in a class, but the thing is like if there's only 4 or 5 good folks, we're only going to take 4 or 5 good folks, right?
Yeah.
If you're a pain in the ass, we don't want to deal with you because we have to deal with you all the time in this, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
all the time, right? And that's where it's just not worth it. I don't make the majority of my money doing this shit, right? Like that's not what I do. So I want to work with you for the long haul. I want to do deals for the long haul. I want to do deals in multiple different states with multiple different folks. That's the goal with all this. It's not to, take as many people as we possibly can, put as much money in our pockets today. You know what I mean? That's not what it's about. And
Yeah.
just like doing one bad deal or trying to screw somebody over one time can ruin you. No one's going home. Okay, not that I know of. No one's going home like getting going home money off of one deal,
Yeah.
right? But you can sure as hell ruin your reputation in this business
Yeah, for sure.
in a, in
Absolutely.
a, in a heartbeat, right? And I don't want to be associated with someone that. So let's just think about that. If I'm not real sure about you, you call and you're kind of seem like you're a pain in the ass or things like this. Do I want to bring you to Terrence and Tim and Daniel and Dan and Braden and all that and say, hey, this is going to be our operator. He's going to run the show on one of these multi-million-dollar deals? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know what
100%
I
agree.
mean? it's more important that you're a good person than anything else. Everything else can be taught. Obviously, we want you to be doing land deals already because I don't want to have to answer, you know, elementary questions when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Like this is all high level discussions, but that doesn't mean that you've done 200 of them either, right?
Yeah,
And it doesn't mean that you have to be doing them for 5 years. Like Justin Pache, right? He's done what for 2 years or 2.5 years, right? In the business, he's doing two great big subdivides,
yeah.
right? But
Well, I
he's a
mean,
go getter. He's a go getter, right? That's more important. Your attitude and your integrity are much more important than how many you've done,
yeah. I
right?
mean, I've learned a lot from Justin already. I mean, he's killing it. So I'm super proud to, be a part of the second masterclass with him because he's rocking it. I'm kind of bitter that I didn't put in on the deal that that he presented. But it is what it is. The next one I
Yep.
will definitely be a part of. So
Nice, nice. So let's go back. Let's kind of do a deep dive on that, right? Like you mentioned a couple things. Once you got into the class, once you had that, when we did the first calls, but especially the live event or not the when we had the deal at the JL bar, right?
yeah,
Go through all that, right? Not only with me and Justin and Adam and seeing the properties and things like this, but also let's talk about the conversations that you had at the house, right, with the other guys that are already part of the group.
yeah. So I would say the other than the business side of this, the couple things that I looked at when I was preparing to come on here and speak of the masterclass was, like I said, the fairness of the selection process. Two was the friendships created because I mean some of these guys. I mean, I would call them up for anything. We're going to continue, this for years to come. I mean, I'll probably invite everybody here to my son's wedding. I mean, that's how strong I feel about the friendships that I've created with a lot of these guys. Being on a call 3 times a week, the accountability calls with Justin and Matt Werner. It's just I feel like I know these guys better than I know some people that I've worked with for 20 years. I mean, and that's just downright the truth.
It absolutely is, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep.
and we all have the same goal in mind, and we're trying to help each other out. So it's completely different than a work environment when you're going to work this is, I mean, we're all looking to better our families, better our financial success for our children, our wealth and everything. So it's cool because everybody's looking out for each other. So
Yes.
at the jail bar, when we were at the ranch, I met Tim, who's a rocket scientist, out of all people. I
Literally
mean,
a rocket scientist. Tim Evans, he's a great guy. He's
yeah,
busy doing NASA things right now, but we're gonna get him back is a little more engaged. But yes, yep.
I met Tim at the same Learn Land conference that I met Justin, except I hung out with Tim for hours and just picked his brain and we laughed and joked. And I had no idea that he was a part of the first masterclass. Had no idea. And then when we did our first call and he was, and I think he was on there. He was either on there or he's on one of them. And I was like, wow. I said, I can't believe that Tim is in the first master. I had no idea. So yeah, I was crazy. I was like, this is great because I met a lot of these people at Learn Land that are in, like Larry. I met Larry there at Learn Land. So I mean, all these guys were part of the first master class. I was like, this is awesome because I've already spoke to most of these guys.
Yep.
So we're at the JL bar, and Tim comes up to me and he says, "Hey, any deal that you bring to the table, I want to be a part of." And to me, I was kind of overwhelmed with that because I was like, wow, this guy's already believing in me to bring a deal forward, and he wants in it. I mean, he's
Yep.
he's already ready to commit. And Daniel Brown was the same way. He gave me the firefighter bump and was like, look, any deal that you bring, he said, I want it. I want to be involved. So it's just like I said, the friendships are second to none. I mean, hands down. So I'm just really excited to be a part of this group and moving forward. Like there's so many opportunities that I'm going to be able to be a part of, and that I'm going to be able to create for other people to be a part of. So
100%, right? And that allows you to diversify your risk across multiple different regions. Again, with people that you
yep,
know, like, and trust that have trained the same way, that speak the same jargon, same language, all of the above, right? Just same
yep,
thing with, you being a firefighter. You have the same jargon, language. There may be some differences between you and the guy in SoCal,
yeah,
right? But overall, it's the same brotherhood,
it
right?
is.
Or sisterhood. What I'm saying? Like it's that kind of, It's that kind of culture.
Yeah,
That's the best way I can explain it, right? It's the correct, what I believe as a correct culture.
yep.
And if I didn't believe that, then I wouldn't be part of that, right?
Yeah, and you brought up the third point. The third thing I had down was opportunities to invest. So because we're all in different parts of the state, we're in different states. There's a lot of opportunity for diversification. So you
Yep.
can put some money in a subdivide in Alabama. Somebody can look at yours and say, "Hey, I want to be a part of Virginia." You're putting money into something in Texas, Oklahoma. There's guys and girls all over doing this in this subdivide masterclass that gives you a lot of diversity to be able to put your money in different places. So
And here's the other thing too is like I know with like some of the guys like, hey, I got a lead on this deal. What do you know about that? Right? That's another big deal that we do all the time, right? All the time, especially as we've got more and more folks in with a bigger background. The other day, Bob was on a call and Matt was talking about it, and they were like, "Hey, well, what do you think about this area?" And then he's like, "Well, I've done this many deals out there. It's been 3 or 4 years, but this is what you need to look out for. This is what you don't need to look out for." And that's in Pennsylvania, right? Like no one talks about Pennsylvania investing, right?
yeah,
Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's not one of the 10 secret counties.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not one of the whatever it is. But the cool thing is again with that collective genius, with that when everyone's pulling. That is what I loved about team sports, because that's when you're down by one and it's late in the hockey game or whatever, or it's freaking fourth and goal and you're on defense, fourth and goal on the one and the time's running out. It's gut check time. And
yeah,
whenever everyone can, when human beings can come together in alignment and multiply that energy, multiply all that stuff, right? Again, we talk about culture.
yeah.
It's amazing what you can do. It's
Yeah, and that's
amazing what you can do.
the nice thing. I don't have to wait for an accountability call, or I don't have to wait for one of our calls. I can just call Justin and say, "Hey, can you help me with this? You have
Yep.
experience here. I don't. Can you help run me through this?" Or I can
Yep.
call Justin, or I can call anybody. We all have each other's numbers. We're all available to each other to help out, and I mean that's huge. So
Yeah. No, and it's funny you say that, but I was like, man, I talk to these guys more, especially now I don't have a day job, right? I was like, I talk to y'all more than anybody,
yeah, I
right?
mean it's true, 100%.
Like I talk to you more than my college buddies, right? Like it's good or bad, right? Like it's the truth,
Yeah,
and that's also, I think, yesterday I had almost an hour long conversation with Dan talking about some different opportunities and pros and cons to this. And we went off the reservation, right? And he was like, "Oh," and I called him. I was like, "Man, just checking in, see how you're doing. You haven't had as much going on. What's causing you some grief or what's causing some problems or one way or other." And Adam does that, and Justin does that, and more. We connect maybe more with one guy more than the other and stuff like that. But like that we're at there where you don't feel like you're so damn alone in this business, right?
yeah, you need that for
That
sure.
that oh for sure. And you're lucky. You
Yeah,
have a beautiful wife that also knows land.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean she started all of it, so I'm just kind of
You know what I'm saying? Like that's, but it's still lonely at times.
I'm riding her coattails, man. She started all.
I don't blame you. I'd ride them as long as I possibly could.
Yeah,
Actually, I'd much rather do a podcast with her.
yeah.
So
I told her that. I mean, so he probably, if I can stand behind you, but he can look at you, I said,
yeah,
talk. That's probably
much
what it.
better, much better. But no, that's where it comes from, guys. Like, and if you're listening to this, at least give Adam a call, right? Or reach out to me. Let's just talk about it. And it may not be a fit. Totally get it. Totally get it. And you may not have the time commitment. You may not be able to commit yet on that kind of scale. The cool thing is the guys and the folks that are usually on the call are usually the ones that are the most active, right? They're the ones making the most offers. They're the ones doing this stuff because what you surround yourself with the expectations that you see, the expectations of, hey, this guy's doing this, at least I know for me, and I know what I'm doing. it still fires me up whenever Pache does another deal. I was like, you know what? Screw that guy. He's from the Navy,
Yeah,
right? Like I could do that. Not really, but you know what I'm saying? Like it does. Like I want to do better, right? When I see people succeed, and again, I love it. I'm not. Again, I've said this a million times, but again, I could raise $100 million tomorrow and not buy everything I want, and right outside of DFW, like within 10 miles of Fort Worth, right? So the opportunity is endless. It's just when you surround yourself with the right kind of human beings, it is rocket fuel. Whenever one, you have that competitive juices, but two, like you said, whenever you have someone that says, "Man, you know what? I believe in you.
yeah,
I freaking believe in you." And
yep,
whether or not you want to believe that or not, like that's important, right? We're all rugged individualists, so we all blah blah blah. Man, sometimes we just need a effing pat on the back
for sure. Yeah, like I
and
said,
a
that was
kick in the ass too, right?
a huge
Sometimes
bounce
you
back,
need a kick in the ass. I get
huge
it. I do too.
to me. When I heard Tim come up and say that, and Daniel approached me, I was like, wow, like these guys, believe in me, and I've talked to them for maybe a collective 3 hours,
Yep.
since I've known them, and they're already ready to back me. So
Yep. Yeah,
that was
and let's kind of compare, and again, this is way more involved, right? And so it's not a real comparison, but like Terrence does a lot of the same things I do. Like you said, you met him at Clint Turner's, Justin and those guys. You met him at, it was Clinton Turner's deal,
yeah,
correct?
it was Learn Land, yeah,
Learn Land, right? And so like you do that. You took uh Callan's course. You've taken a lot of courses, right? And you
yeah,
continue to take courses.
yeah, absolutely, always,
You
always,
know,
you got
you're always trying to get better.
yeah, always educating yourself and continually just trying to grow and get better. Um, Podcasting, I listen to your podcast all the time. I listen to Justin's. I listen to a few others. I mean, that's where you learn. You just got to
Yep.
continually just educate yourself. I got an hour drive to work when I do go in, and an hour drive back, and
You work.
I
You
do.
work? You work? You're a
I
firefighter. You
was
work? What are you talking about?
I knew this thing was coming about the firefighter.
Good people of Virginia's tax dollars going
Well,
going to work every once in a while.
I drive in and occupy a spot. Yes. So,
That's great to hear. I'm sure they'll be super excited to hear.
so, but yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So what do you think is the next thing? And let's get off the master class a little bit, right? Like what do you think the next thing is for you and Angela's business, right? Again, you've the master class, adding another tool to the toolbox, right? Uh, Ajay and Clint and Callan and whomever, right? Like
Yeah.
what's the kind of the new thing, and this is something that we've been talking about a lot in the master class here lately, right? But like what's the next step up, or is there a next step up, or are you just getting sharpening your axe, right? Like what's up next for y'all?
I think we're probably pretty comfortable where we're at right now, just with the subdivides and the regular flips that we're doing.
Yep.
And I was talking to my realtor a little bit ago. He called me about a property he was looking at, and I just was like, man, I don't have the bandwidth. I've got with two boys in hockey. I'm coaching a lot. I've got two full time jobs. Like
Yep.
my bandwidth is just stretched. So I think at the moment we're going to probably stick where we're at. Continually with the subdivides, the straight flips that we're doing,
Yep. Yep.
and kind of work that out. I've got, as I tell you guys all the time, I got 3 years until I can retire. With 20 years of service in the fire department, and then I'm out. And then this will be exactly what I'm doing for the future and beyond. So
Yeah, but I mean, so like the New Deal entitlements are going horizontal construction or even vertical construction.
yeah,
Y'all feel good about where you're at, obviously, right? We just got done talking about potentially $700,000+ in profit on a
yeah,
deal, right? Like you can do okay with that. Much less y'all continue to market, you do a
yeah.
bunch of stuff. So so you're just going to continue to get better at what you're doing, right?
So obviously, if you're in this space, you think big all the time. I know I do. Like I'm always thinking big, always. I'm thinking just what everybody else, horizontally putting cabins. What if I take these 7 parcels and put a cabin on each one of them, close to a resort and spa and golf course? I mean, it's a thought that crossed my mind for sure. So
Yep.
I'm always thinking of that. We bought a camper, we started camping, RV park. I'm always thinking like, what if I buy some land and just put some pads in, some hookups, and do that as well. So I mean, there's always things that are running through my mind that I told Justin. It was funny, and I always tell Angela. So we've been on this podcast, and now I'm on it again, and I always joke around with her. I said we should start our own podcast. We're one of the only
I
couples that
agree.
that are
Totally.
actually doing this together, and it has strengthened our marriage like you wouldn't believe. I mean, who doesn't want to make money? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Who doesn't want to make money? And we're doing it together, and it's just what you can see what it's doing financially through the
Yep.
generational wealth that we're creating and the diversification that we have with our note portfolio, the apartment syndication we're in, the pasture holdings that we're investing in that. I mean, I'm just constantly looking to put my money in places that it can grow and that it can give back to me later. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. No, that's great. Now but as of right now, you're gonna keep doing what you're doing, right?
yeah,
Like that's it,
opportunities like my mind is just always thinking, just like you said, when we go into calls for Masterclass and we're talking about building vertically, and those guys are talking about Clayton Homes and trailer, putting
yep.
modelers or cabins, or now we're looking at tiny homes, putting those on spots. So I mean, the wheels are constantly spinning. They're constantly
And
spinning on what we can get into next.
and
So
that's what I enjoy about like those calls, right? Is
yeah,
because sometimes there's not no one's got anything big going right now, right? Always have time to discuss those next things, right?
yeah,
For whomever, right? And that's what I really enjoy is like, hey, what do you think about this? Well, have you ever thought about this, and this? And you're like, ah, shit, never mind, right? Like,
yeah,
because saving that bandwidth, right? Like you just got done talking about
yeah,
saving that bandwidth, not going down that rabbit hole is sometimes way more worth it than not, right?
yeah, for sure.
And again, I still think the greatest opportunity in this whole niche is to buy low and owner finance, right?
Yeah,
Like buy better properties, owner finance them, build long term note well, and that's what was so cool. Did you listen to Spencer's podcast he did with me a couple days ago?
I did. Yeah,
Wrapping of buying it with the bank financing, wrapping them, and then using those notes up to 65% as collateral for another deal.
yeah. I mean, it's incredible.
I was just like, oh, I was like,
And
okay,
I have to
okay,
continue to educate myself and listen to podcasts because it's something that I didn't think of. I mean, I
yeah,
have 35 notes right now that we're holding. So, listening to that and hearing what he's doing just opens up another opportunity.
yeah. And I've heard it, to hypothecate, right? Like you take a tranche of them, you take a bunch of them, right? And let's say you get 35 of them, or you want to take 15 or whatever, right? 15 and 20, and you want to go back to the bank and say, hey, this is the assets backing it, this is where we're at, what would you be willing to lend on that? And then going and talking to multiple ones, right? And working with them over and over again and talking, and that right there is where the lazy button for me has not been the best, because I love our bank, right? The
Yeah.
Texas Bank, like you met Joseph, like Kara and Casey, and like they're amazing people. But if you're not working on that end as well, right? Just as much as you are working on your investors and your deal flow and things like this, like that's where you can literally one relationship, man, it can change some into some cool shit,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Some really, really cool shit.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm just like, man, I've like after I got off the deal with Spencer, I was like, thank you so much for that, because that wasn't even part of the like the workup, right? It just came out in that podcast, and I was just like, I made notes. I was like a madman.
Yeah.
I was like, I look like Beautiful Mind writing on the window, right? Like, it's just like, I was like, okay, if I do this, and then we take this much, and like the ability to compound that, especially in a slow market,
Yeah.
is astronomical.
Those relationships too that you create with the bank and your surveyor and your soil guy. I mean, it just I can call any of these people and they help me out like immediately. I mean,
Well,
just
and that's what we do with the masterclass, right? That's the whole thing that we teach you is like, hey, you're building your own business, your own team
yeah,
in that area, and you can go in multiple areas. But first, let's just focus on one area. And it takes a while. You know this, right? It takes some time to find the
sure,
right one. That's going to be a good broker. It's going to take a while to find the good banker. It's going to take a while to find a good road guy. Or gal, right? It's going to take a while to find a great engineer
yeah,
that answers the phone whenever you call.
yeah,
It,
absolutely. And going out to the property in San Angelo and being able to meet those guys and talk to them and just get their perspectives of, hey, do you prefer to work with a certain surveyor? You're asking the survey guy, does he prefer to work with a certain engineer? And they're saying, well, yeah, we do like to work with some of the, other than others.
yep.
Came back here and kind of did the same thing. I called my surveyor up and I said, hey, who do you typically use for your road guy, or who's your engineer that you use? Because I want to try and keep them all in the same loop because they communicate and they work well with each other. So, and
Yep.
they've worked and done deals in the past. So my surveyor now just sent me a sketch, but I haven't paid him a dime yet for anything, and
Yeah.
he's just sending me stuff. And he's like, honestly, I called him. This has been going on for 2.5 months. He's been out there working on the property, and I called him. I said, "Hey, Steve," I said, "I don't have even an estimate on how much this is going to cost, but yet you've done 90% of the work." And he was like, "Terrence, I promise you'll be happy." He said, "I think I kind of dropped the ball on that." He said, "But what I can tell you is," he said, "you're going to be happy." and, I've got him slated for another subdivide that I'm working on. That he did quote me on that one, and then we ran into some titling issues with a road maintenance agreement with
Yep.
a subdivision. So he was like, don't worry about it. He said, I'm going to take care of you. So he's already sent me the sketch plat to send to the county. I haven't sent him a dime in payment. But I told him, I said, look, I'm going to use you and I'm going to recommend you for use. I recommended him to my realtor. My realtor's already got 3 surveys on his calendar, for Steve. So Steve's looking back and saying, well, he's looking out for me. So I'm going to look out for him. So, you got to
That
create partnerships.
again, teamwork, right? You got to have a quarterback. You got to have a left tackle. You got to have a running back. You got to have a middle linebacker. You got to have a safety. You got to have, you know what I mean? You can't play all of them,
Nope.
right? And that's where we talk about this all the time. It's a team sport.
Yeah.
The thing is you can't have assholes on your team,
Yeah.
right? And you may run into a couple getting started, but once you build that team, the cool thing is they know that you're going to pay them, right? That's another big deal. You tell them exactly what you want. You don't be a prick about it, right?
Yep.
You also listen to what they have to say, and you be open to what they have to say. Obviously, you're still the one that's paying the bills, right? And so you have the final say. But like hearing, hey, what do you think about this? This because you don't have enough high space, right, out of the floodplain in order to really have a good building site. Shit, okay, we're going to move this one over and we're going to do this. Versus, no, by God, I told you it needs to be 10 acres on all these. I don't give a shit what anybody says. This is where it needs to be.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with you, right? Garrick told us that whenever we were in Sonora, right? He's like, dude, if you're a pain in the ass, we don't want to deal with you, right?
Absolutely. And I
And
credit
so,
that hands-on experience of being out there, looking at the
yeah,
projects that you guys had going, being able to talk to your road guy, to the surveyor, to the bank. That was huge for me because when I came back, like I just met up at the property with my road guy, with the surveyor, and we had a blast. We walked the property. He had his quad there. We rode his quad around, looking where the road was going to go, and just
firefighter style, everybody sitting in each other's lap.
yeah. So and it just was fun, man. I mean, I was just like, wow. I had to stand back and just look and say, wow, I can't believe that I'm doing this. Like, I can't believe.
It's insane, right? It's amazing when it actually happens and you build that team.
Yeah.
And again, this is I'll make fun of all the land dorks in the world, right? Like it's not spreadsheets. This game is not spreadsheets and text messages and drip campaigns or anything else like that.
Nope.
This is a relationship game.
It is for sure.
It is a
So
relationship game. And
I
so just understand the cool thing with that is those relationships will feed you from here on out. You're
yeah,
not always having to find that next one. Once you build that team,
yep.
then you can use that team from here on out. That's the cool thing.
And that's exactly it. So the road guy that I use, he cleared 2 properties for me and put build sites in a different county. So I called him up and was like, "Hey, Ricky, I need a road put in on a property in Berkeley County." And he was like, "Well, Terrence, I really don't go that far." I said, "Well, I love the work that you did. You sent me photos. I went up, I looked at everything that you cleared off. I said, I'd really like you to do this work because I trust you. I trust you and I know the quality of work that you do." And he said, "When do you want to meet up there?" So he met me up there.
And pay
And
them a little more. And pay them a little more. That's fine.
it literally poured for the hour and a half that we walked. I mean, we were soaked, but we walked this property from front to back, trying to figure out, hey, this is the best place to put the road in. And I mean, it's just he did that because of the deals that we did in the past. He's willing to come out. And I told him, I said, Ricky, I said, look, I said, having your experience and your knowledge and the quality of work that you do, I said, I'll pay for that. I'll pay for
Yep.
that all day long. So
Yep.
I got him. I've got my surveyor, which is Steve from A to Z Land. I mean, these guys, they're working together now. I've got my realtor who's working with them, bringing them others. So it's great. I mean, it's a really good team. So
And it feels like you're cheating.
yeah,
It literally feels like you're cheating, right?
it,
Like you're like, I'm doing this and making a shit ton of money. I cannot believe that this is my quote unquote job.
yeah. Well, and we talk about friendships. Not only the friendships in the masterclass, I've got friendships with realtors. I use Whitetail Properties, and I know all these guys. So my wife and I, we get a suite at the Apple Blossom Festival every year, which is in town. And I invited all my realtors. Come down, watch the parade. Let's sit there and talk shop. And how can we move forward and make as much money as possible? So you create a team, and with everything you do in this land space. So
And
masterclass
that's,
team,
yep,
my
no.
team back here of surveyors, engineers, road guys, soil guys, and then my team of realtors that I use, and we're all looking out for each other. That's huge, huge.
Because you do it the right way, right? And that's the reason that you're in the master class is because you're good people.
Yeah, absolutely. So
That's the key to that, right? Because again, people want to work with good people. Obviously, you do what you say you're going to do. You pay the people on time.
yep,
You know what I mean? You're realistic with what you're trying to do. That is the key to business. I don't care what it is, right? But especially in real estate, especially in what we do, because it is a very, very small niche overall. You think
yeah,
that there's a shit ton of people in it, but like what we do, especially in our own backyards, things like that, you figure out who the top 4 or 5 folks are in a hurry,
yeah, for sure,
and
absolutely.
you will get a reputation. And if you're associated with that reputation, things like that, like one, people don't want to work with you, they'll charge you more, but more importantly, they just don't want to work with you. And it's
Yeah,
really hard to get much done when you don't have a left tackle.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's a nice thing. Like I've used my soil guy for a perk test on just straight flips, and he puts me to the front of the line. So instead of having to wait for 4 to 5, maybe 6 to 7 weeks. Sometimes he's booked out because I've used him in the past, and I tell him, look, I'm not your average everyday homeowner that's going to have you do one soil test for me, one perk test, and then never talk to you again. Like I'm going to bring you business. So anytime I call, he puts me to the front of the line, and I've got 3 of them that I use in the counties that I'm using, and they all put me straight to
Yep.
the front of the line. So
Yep. And it usually done the same way with all the other folks too, right? Because
yep,
they know, and you pay them on time. So you get the bill, you pay them, right? Like they know that if it's a job for Terrence, it's as good as done.
yep, absolutely,
So anyway, well, hey man, we're coming up on 50 minutes. Thanks again for
yeah.
your time. Hey, if people want to reach out to you and the missus, how do they get a hold of you? Like I said, Terrence and Angela are a wealth of knowledge. If you either want to talk masterclass or just talk shop, maybe they got some deals up in your part of the world that y'all can joint venture on, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do they get a hold of you?
So it's Terence at gcslandinvestments.com, or you can email my wife. It's Angela at gcslandinvestments.com, or you can call or text me at 724 323 2155.
Guys, I would call Terrence, send him a text, set up a time. He knows all this shit, right? Like he knows subdivides, he knows texting, he knows mailings, he knows all of it, right? Again, just because he doesn't have his own podcast yet doesn't mean that he doesn't know his shit forwards and backwards. So I don't know where you're gonna find time to do it, but
Don't right
like I
now.
said, thank you all again for coming and for being part of the masterclass and being part of the family. Like we really appreciate y'all. So I will like I said, if you've got any questions, like I said, reach out to me 940-736-8797. We will talk to y'all later.
Thanks, Trevor.